Welcome again to Roland's Reviews. For all of the fathers in the audience, I hope that you have a wonderful Father's Day, and thank you for being there for your children. Um, let's get the fire started today. Look at the topic. So, I think you've heard me sort of touch on this before in the past. We hear the terms systemic racism frequently, right? Being thrown around by the race hustlers, by people who are making excuses, the NAACP, Congressional Black Caucus, Al Sharpton, the other puppets and plants. All right. So systemic racism is not the problem. Now, if you go back, I remember when I was in college, I remember Larry Elder talking about the issue. He was on Fox News. He was talking about this in the 90s. Dr. Thomas Sowell has been talking about this as well. They've both been talking about it probably 20 years or more. No one wanted to listen. They wanted to continue to make excuses. Um, Everyone who's here, how you doing, John, Lisa, Florida, Baldwin Birds, John, Leslie, Cha Cha, Florida, Underground, everyone who's here, please go ahead and hit that like button. Probably most of the fathers are out enjoying a meal with their family, so that's fine. They'll have to catch it on the replay. So, systemic racism is not the problem, okay? Fatherlessness is the problem. See, Farah, how are you? How everyone? Okay, happy Father's Day. Damien, how are you? Thanks for the stream. Oh yeah, anytime, Damien. We have to get the truth out. Love you from the wicked state of California. We'll be leaving soon. Thank God. Yeah, Damien, get out, dear, while you can. Toy Mafia, how are you? So, again, folks, that's all we hear in the media, systemic racism. Let's go ahead and read. I pulled some sites up, and I wanted to read some things with you. Okay. War on he started was the beginning of the welfare state, pretty much. So the war on poverty was the expansive social welfare legislation, right, introduced in the 60s by the Lyndon Johnson administration. Now, supposedly, the intended purpose was to help end poverty in the United States. Okay, supposedly, this was known, of course, as the Great Society. You've heard me mention this or reference this in prior videos. And so I'm not going to sit here and read all of this to you. But if you look at statistics, remember, we all have a right to our own opinion, but we don't have a right to our own facts. Lisa says, I left California in October. Oh, yeah, Lisa, thank God you got out. Jesus, it's awful. And so, again, if you look at all of the statistics, and I did share this link with you below the video, so just check it out. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and read all of it to you, but I just wanted to reference that because you hear me frequently talking about that. And remember, Lyndon Johnson said when he released this, we'll have the ends voting for Democrats for the next 200 years. Okay, it's been 60 plus years to make that statement. So look, read through that. Again, the link is up under the video. All of this, again, if people would do more reading, they could become learned and talk about a topic intelligently. Instead of just going, remember that vote blue no matter who. No, look things up. Research the people that you're thinking about voting for. Isaiah, I'm doing great. Hope that you are. Ruby, how are you? Gavin Gruesome. Ruby, I like that. Ruby, you always have some nice names. I love it. So yeah, go. I'm not going to read all of this, but we're looking at them. And we'll move on to the next. I don't want to keep you long. I know some of the fathers are eager to get out. Those who are here are eager to get out with their families. Okay. All right. So we'll stop sharing that and go on to the next. Okay, where are we? All right, I'll go back and I'll stop sharing. And again, you can read that in its entirety. It's under the video, so you'll see it. All right, where else are we here? Okay, we're done with that. Blame the So this is Dr. Thomas Sowell. I'm going to share this. Larry Elder and Thomas Sowell again. If people had just listened to them, they were telling them over 20 years ago what the problem was. No one wanted to hear it, unfortunately. I'll share my screen again. All right. While you're here, folks, please go ahead and hit that like button. Yeah, Florida Ruby is a hoot. I love it. And again, if more people would read Dr. Sowell's books, oh my God, he's great. All right, and hopefully you can see this. I also shared this link in the description box. All right, that should pop up for you there in a moment. And the title of this article: Blame the welfare state, not racism. Okay, it's coming, folks. I don't know why every time it's time for me to do a live stream, I don't get any cooperation here. All right, blame the welfare state, not racism, for poor blacks' problems. This is from Dr. Thomas Sowell. He's been saying this forever. Larry Elder's been saying this forever. Among the many painful ironies in the current racial turmoil is that communities scattered across the country were disrupted by riots and looting because of the demonstrable lie that Michael Brown was shot in the back. So we're going back to Michael Brown. Remember when he was shot, he was stealing property from a store. He didn't have a weapon, but when you go in and you take property that doesn't belong to you, you can't justify it. That's what he was doing. The media didn't really, you have to really do some research. They didn't really want to reiterate that. Not saying that he deserved to be shot, but we're just saying, what precipitated the shooting. And so he was shot in the back by a white policeman in Missouri, but there was not nearly as much turmoil created by the demonstrable fact that a fleeing black man was shot dead by a white policeman in South Carolina. Okay, so let's go on. Here's Dr. Sowell. Totally ignored was the fact that a black policeman in Alabama fatally shot an unarmed white teenager and was cleared of any charges at about the same time that a white policeman was cleared of charges in the fatal shooting of Michael Brown. So remember, folks, we talked about that narrative. How you doing, Joyce Frazier? We talked about statistically speaking, if you go back a few videos, I shared some statistics with you. And more white people are killed by the police than black, but that doesn't fit the narrative, so they don't say anything. And that's just, why you have to do your own research. And so in a world where the truth means so little and headstrong preconceptions seem to be all that matter, what hope is there for rational words or rational behavior, much less mutual understanding across racial lines? So so I'm not going to read all of this for you, but Dr. Sowell, again, I'm an avid follower. That vision is nowhere more clearly expressed in an attempt to automatically depict whatever social problems exist in ghetto communities as being caused by the sins or negligence of whites, whether racism in general or a legacy of slavery in particular. So again, blaming a whole race of people for your bad choices, folks. That's what we're talking about. Like most emotionally powerful visions, it is seldom, if ever, subjected to the test of evidence. The legacy of slavery argument is not just an excuse for inexcusable behavior in the ghettos. In a larger sense, it is an evasion of responsibility for the disastrous consequences of the prevailing social vision of our times and the political policies based on that vision over the past half century. So those of you just coming in, we've been talking about this for a while now. And so nothing new to see here, right? Anyone who is serious about evidence need only compare Black communities as they evolved in the first 100 years after slavery with Black communities as they evolved in the first 50 years after the explosive growth of the welfare state beginning in the 60s. So those of you just coming in, if you're new to the channel, we go back and check out prior videos. I've been talking about this. You'd be hard pressed to find as many ghetto riots prior to the 1960s as we have seen just in the past year, much less in the 50 years since a wave of such riots swept across the country in 1965. And again, if you talk to the talking heads, they're making all kinds of excuses. And we're told that such riots are a result of Black poverty and white racism. But in fact, for those who will still have some respect for facts, Black poverty was far worse and white racism was far worse prior to 1960. Guys, you can look these stats up. Dr. Sowell has everything, and I told you he's written over 40 books, okay? So yeah, but violent crime within Black ghettos was far less. Murder rates among Black males was going down, repeat down, during the much lamented 1950s, and then it went up after the much celebrated, 60s. Okay, reaching levels more than double what they had been. Most Black children were raised in two-parent families prior to the 1960s. Don't forget that. That's key. But today, the great majority of Black children are raised in one-parent families. And those of us working in education, as some of my subscribers are, we can attest to that. We can pretty much tell. Not always, but excuse me, 90% of the time we can tell. Such trends are not unique to Blacks, nor even to the United States. So Dr. Sowell, one thing about him, he's done research in other countries, in England and in Switzerland, and you see the same trends. And it's just astounding, the research that he has conducted over the years. The welfare state has led to remarkably similar trends among the white underclass in England over the same period of time. So you get the same results. It doesn't matter what color the people are, folks. Okay. And so I'm not going to read all that. Again, you can you can read it in its entirety. I shared this link as well up under my video. Those of you who are there, folks, please go ahead, share this out on your various forms of social media so we can bring more people into the conversation. And so we'll close that out. And we'll move on. Most of you are familiar. We've often mentioned Larry Elder. We've mentioned him a little bit here. And so I wanted to share. He, as well as Dr. Sowell, have been saying the same thing, and no one wanted to listen. And you may have seen them on Fox or other shows debating with Al Sharpton and other talking heads. And all I can say is people should have listened to them instead of Al Sharpton. All right, so let's see. And Larry Elder, those of you who look at the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, he was talking about it on there, and he kind of shut him down. He recently appeared on the Breakfast Club to talk about race and the myth of systemic racism. All right, let me get this off of here. All right. Okay. All right. Tell me what you think about this in the comment section, folks. Just type it and I'll read it. You know I will. Pages. Again, instead of looking for excuses, right? We need to take an honest look at the issue. And I read some of that. I'll go ahead and close that out. There's no need to read that again. You can see that in its entirety. And then I have a couple of short videos. I think I shared these as well with you. So let's see. First one will be with Larry Elder. He's great. So let's see.
Years ago, I interviewed Kwesi Mfume, then the president of the NAACP. As between the presence of white racism and the absence of black fathers, I asked him, which poses the bigger threat to the black community? Without missing a beat, he said, the absence of black fathers. It was President Barack Obama who said, we all know these statistics, that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. The Journal of Research on Adolescence confirms that even after controlling for varying levels of household income, kids in father-absent homes are more likely to end up in jail. And kids who never had a father in the house are the most likely to wind up behind bars. In 1960, 5% of America's children entered the world without a mother and father married to each other. By 1980, it was 18%. By 2000, it had risen to 33%, and 15 years later, the number reached 41%. For blacks, even during slavery, when marriage for slaves was illegal, black children were more likely than today to be raised by both their mother and father. Economist Walter Williams has written that, according to census data from 1890 to 1940, a black child was more likely to grow up with married parents than a white child. For blacks, out-of-wedlock births have gone from 25% in 1965 to 73% in 2015. For whites, from less than 5% to over 25%, and for Hispanics, out-of-wedlock births have risen to 53%. What happened to fathers? The answer is found in a basic law of economics. If you subsidize undesirable behavior, you will get more undesirable behavior. In 1949, the nation's poverty rate was 34%. By 1965, it was cut in half to 17%, all before President Lyndon Johnson's so-called war on poverty. But after that war began in 1965, poverty began to flatline. From 1965 until now, the government has spent over $20 trillion to fight poverty. The poverty rate has remained unchanged, but the relationship between poor men and women has changed dramatically. That's because our generous welfare system allows women, in effect, to marry the government. And this makes it all too easy for men to abandon their traditional moral and financial responsibilities. Psychologists call such dependency learned helplessness. How do we know that the welfare state creates disincentives that hurt the very people we're trying to help? They tell us. In 1985, the Los Angeles Times asked both the poor and the non-poor whether poor women often have children to get additional benefits. Most of the non-poor respondents said no. However, 64% of poor respondents said yes. Now, who do you think is in a better position to know? Tupac Shakur, the late rapper, once said, "I know for a fact that had I had a father, I'd have some discipline, I'd have more confidence." He admitted he began running with gangs because he wanted the things a father gives to a child, especially to a boy: structure and protection. Your mother cannot calm you down the way a man can, Shakur said. You need a man to teach you how to be a man. In my book, Dear Father, Dear Son, I write about my rough, tough World War II Marine Staff Sergeant dad. Born in the Jim Crow South of Athens, Georgia, he was 14 at the start of the Great Depression. Growing up, I watched my father work 2 full-time jobs as a janitor. He also cooked for a rich family on the weekends and somehow managed to go to night school to get his GED. When I was 10, my father opened a small restaurant that he ran until he retired in his mid-80s. He was never angry or bitter and insisted that today's America was very different from the world of racial segregation and limited opportunity in which he grew up. Hard work wins, he told me and my brothers. You get out of life what you put into it. You can't control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before blaming other people, go to the nearest mirror and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? This advice shaped my life. Fathers matter. Until we have a government policy that makes that its first priority, nothing will change. I'm Larry Elder.
So, again, folks, that is powerful. What if we shared this information with millions of people? That's very powerful. Yeah. So, what do you think about that? Type it in the comment section, folks. And his father, that World War II generation, boy, they were tough as nails. And they, as hard as they had it, they weren't asking for any handouts. They weren't asking for anything. They just dug in and worked hard. Okay? So that can be life-changing. And, when you think about the people who did, live through Jim Crow, as he said, his father wasn't bitter. So his father was a strong guy. Cha-Cha said, Ruby, they're attacking Byron Donalds because they think he's going to be Trump's VP. Facts. Ruby, Cha-Cha, I wish, but Byron Donalds is a Florida resident, as is Trump. He can't be VP. Okay, Ruby. All right, so that was Larry Elder. I wanted to share this with Dr. Sowell. Again, this is what we've been talking about. Then I'll let you go because I know it's Father's Day. This comes from Dr. Sowell's book, Black Rednecks and White Liberals.
From the 1960s onward, much of the transplanted Southern culture would, like Black English, be seen as sacrosanct features of a distinctive Black identity, despite their mirroring very similar cultural patterns among Southern whites in times past. Not all Black Americans, of course, retain this anachronistic culture, for the spread of education and the growing experience of the counterproductive effects of the Southern redneck way of life eroded it over time for many Blacks, as happened also among the whites who brought this culture over from Britain. Even during the era of slavery, those Blacks who were house servants in more educated homes tended to pick up a different culture, giving their descendants enduring advantages over the descendants of field hands. Contemporary Black ghetto culture in the United States is not, however, a simple linear extrapolation from the culture of Southern whites. First of all, most Black Americans today are no longer part of the ghetto culture. Moreover, aside from influences peculiar to the circumstances of Blacks, profound changes in the larger American society around them have also had an influence, both positive and negative. The burgeoning of the American welfare state in the second half of the 20th century and the declining effectiveness of the American criminal justice system at the same time allowed borrowed and counterproductive cultural traits to continue and flourish among those Blacks who had not yet moved beyond that culture, thereby prolonging the life of a chaotic, counterproductive, dangerous, and self-destructive subculture in many urban ghettos. Crime and violence were among the features of this subculture that were artificially prolonged. Prior to the 1960s, while Black males had a higher murder rate than other males, their murder rate was also declining more sharply than the general murder rate. Subsequently, the general murder rate in the United States and the murder rate for Black males both reversed and began rising sharply, that of Black males more sharply than others. In short, the drastic changes in law enforcement and social morality during the 1960s had particularly adverse effects on the behavior and actions of Blacks and on Black victims of the criminals in their midst. Intellectuals have also played a role, along with the welfare state, in prolonging and legitimizing a counterproductive culture among Blacks. Nowhere was the effect of the white liberalism of the 1960s on the social evolution of Black culture more devastating than in the disintegration of the Black family. The raw facts are these. As of 1960, 51% of Black females between the ages of 15 and 44 were married and living with their husbands. Another 20% were divorced, widowed, or separated. And only 28% had never been married. 20 years later, only 31% of Black women in these age brackets were married and living with their husbands, while 48% had never married. By 1994, an absolute majority, 56%, of Black women in these age brackets were never married, and only 25% were married and living with their husbands. Accordingly, while 2/3 of Black children were living with both parents in 1960, only 1/3 were by 1994. While only 22% of Black children were born to unmarried women in 1960, 70% were by 1994. White liberals, instead of comparing what has happened to the Black family since the liberal welfare state policies of the 1960s were put into practice, compare Black families to white families, and conclude that the higher rates of broken homes and unwed motherhood among Blacks are due to a legacy of slavery. But why the large-scale disintegration of the Black family should have begun 100 years after slavery is left unexplained. Whatever the situation of the Black family relative to the white family, in the past or the present, it is clear that broken homes were far more common among Blacks at the end of the 20th century than they were in the middle of that century or at the beginning of that century.
Facts.
Even though Blacks at the beginning of the 20th century were just one generation out of slavery. The widespread and casual abandonment of their children and of the women who bore them by Black fathers in the ghettos of the late 20th century was, in fact, a painfully ironic contrast with what had happened in the immediate aftermath of slavery 100 years earlier, when observers in the South reported desperate efforts of freed Blacks to find family members who had been separated from them during the era of slavery.
So again, folks, I was just sharing that with you. That's an excerpt from Dr. Sowell's book. He's written over 40. I just wish I had time to read them all. So what do you guys think? I just wanted to share that with you because, you know, we have mentioned some of those concepts here and just wanted to know what you thought. Because if you listen to the media, they're telling you everything can be attributed to slavery and white supremacy. And if you keep listening to the lies, you can never correct the problem. And so why don't we all start reading Dr. Sowell's books, Social Justice Fallacies. And, if you want, most of his books are on YouTube. If you don't have time to read his book, you can listen to the audiobooks here on YouTube. And excellent information. And then his contemporary, Walter Williams, him as well. His books, his audiobooks are on YouTube. And he's another one. He's been telling people for over 20 years. Well, he's deceased now, but before he, passed away, he was telling people what the problem was. They didn't want to hear it. All right. Okay, so that's all I wanted to share with you. And I hope everyone, again, if you need to reach out to me, please send me an email, Florida, and some of the rest of you. I go pick up the T-shirts on, I think, Thursday or Friday, as well as the business cards as well. So Ruby says, oh, Ruby, your message disappeared. Okay, so anyway, if you want to reach out to me, fine. Oh, some of you were asking about what happened to Al. So I did reach out to Al, and I sent him an email, and he said that he's having major surgery. So just keep him in your prayers. That's why he hasn't been here. I told you I would check. And so that was what he told me. Okay. And so that's all I wanted to share with you. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Father's Day. And for those of you who still have your fathers, be thankful. Spend time with Dad while he's still here. You don't want to be one of those people who have regrets, woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? All right. I enjoyed all of you as I always do. Yeah, Florida, Al. Yeah, prayers up. Guys, we need to send prayers up for Al. I think he's sort of he's just devastated right now, and he has to have major surgery. So we're hoping that he can pull through that. Okay, but I'm in contact with him, and I'll try to keep you posted so far as his progress is concerned. All right. Well, I enjoyed each of you. Those of you who have social media, please share this stream out with your family, friends, co-workers. C. Fryer, my dad is 83 and we talk every Sunday. Perfect, C. Fryer. That's wonderful. And if I get some time, I'll try. I may upload. I have a couple of videos I actually need to upload. I actually was on someone else's podcast, Brutally Honest, the Brutally Honest podcast. So I need to upload those videos. He's a real good guy. We've done 2 interviews and I thoroughly enjoyed both of them. So I've been trying to get them uploaded. I've just been having some issues, but I will upload those 2 videos eventually. Oh, wow, Ruby, your dad's 93. Oh, wow. Perfect. Oh, some of you people are really blessed. Oh, my goodness. That is a blessing, Ruby. All right. Just look, like I said, whenever I get these videos to upload, I've downloaded them. I've been trying to upload. They start uploading and then they freeze. So just be looking out. I have 2 videos that I will be uploading for you. And you know how I do. I'll continue to respond to your comments in the comment section after I end the live chat. Okay, Baldwin Birds. Yeah, that is amazing. Ruby, he still drives. Oh, my God, Ruby. Wow. Florida, you as well. Each of you enjoy your dads. Take them, buy them a nice meal and tell them how much you love them. All right. I look forward to seeing you all here again at the Rolynn's Reviews YouTube channel. So enjoy your day and I'll see you soon. And be watching out for the videos that I'm trying to get uploaded. They will be uploaded hopefully in the next couple of days. Thank you so much and enjoy your day.